Alrighty, welcome back, folks. Going over now the Central Division review for last week, just kind of what the standings are and what the teams in the Central Division have coming up for this upcoming week as well. We're going to go over each Central Division schedule and just what I think is going to happen for this upcoming week. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. What we're going to start with now is just kind of a rehash as to what the playoff structure is like in the ECHL. It starts with the top four teams from each division will qualify for the playoffs as the division winner and then on through fourth place. And then one will play four, two will play three, each in a best of 7 game series. And then the winners of those two series will then play each other for basically the postseason division championship. So right now, as the standings are, it would be Cincinnati would play Fort Wayne, Toledo would play Indy, and then the winners of those two series would play one another, and then the winner of that Central Division series would then play the winner of the Mountain Division series in a best of 7 set. And again, I'm going to have a video in a little bit after this one on my YouTube channel here about what the Mountain Division standings are. So it would be just really quickly one of Idaho, Allen, Kansas City, or Utah by virtue of tiebreakers. For the Mountain Division, the winner of those postseason series would then play the winner of the Central Division series. And then on the other side of things, on the Eastern Conference side of things, that would be the North Division champion playing the South Division champion. And again, we're going to get into all of those details with each individual division as we go along. So we will start with right off the bat where the teams are. From first place last week, Toledo grabbed their 41st victory, dropping Fort Wayne's elimination number down to 4, Indy down to 7, and Cincinnati down to 12. And of course, with Cincinnati overtaking Toledo, they are now above the walleye in terms of standings as Cincinnati grabs 2 points, dropping Fort Wayne's elimination number down to 3, Indy down to 6. Cincinnati, or by the way, Toledo with 222 goals scored. They scored 6 goals last week and allowed, have now on the season allowed just 145. So they allowed just 3 goals. They scored 6, allowed 3. For Cincinnati, as I mentioned, now up to 40 wins, 12 overtime losses, 6 overtime losses, 3 shootout losses, and with their 34 regulation wins, again, we already got that. All that information taken care of. The Indy Fuel grabbed their 37th victory of the year, dropping Kalamazoo's elimination number down to 2, and Wheeling down to 2, Fort Wayne down to 10. And of course, that's just what my numbers are right now. The Fuel have clinched the playoffs, and they will play in the postseason. 37-21 and 3. So the Fuel did lose 1-0-1 last week. Started the week with 208 goals. They finished with 215. So they scored 7 goals last week. Started the week with 174 goals allowed. Now have allowed 179. So they scored 7, allowed 5 last week. For Fort Wayne, they still are sitting on 30 victories. They lose twice in regulation, dropping their elimination number for the division at 2. 1 for second place, and by virtue of the number of games that they have left to play, I believe that they are still active, but just barely for the division. Yeah, because Cincinnati plus 9 in the tiebreaker of regulation wins, which is the, as I mentioned, the tiebreaker. So they went 1-2, not 0-2, 1-2 for Fort Wayne. 226 goals scored now for the Comets. Scored 8 goals last week. Allowed 219 coming into last week. They gave up 10 goals, so they were outscored 10-8. And Wheeling still with the 25 wins. They had 2 wins last week. They lose to the 31st time in regulation. Their elimination number for the playoffs is now down to 6. They scored 14 goals last week. And 204 goals allowed now. They gave up 11, though. Okay, and now we have the Kalamazoo Wings, still sitting on 23 victories. Did not get a win last week. They did lose 3 times in regulation over the week, 2 more times since I last updated it. Dropping that elimination number down to 5 for them for the playoffs, 10 for 6th place, 23, 33, 4-0 for the K-Wings. Scored just 4 goals last week. Allowed 10. So yeah, Kalamazoo just barely alive in terms of the playoffs go. Their elimination number is 5 for the postseason. For Fort Wayne to clinch a playoff berth, that magic number still is 6 for them. Fort Wayne this week will have 3 games, playing Rapid City on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They need Wheeling to lose. Wheeling plays Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, hosting Kalamazoo, and then Reading for 2 of those 3 games. So it is possible for Fort Wayne to clinch the playoffs this week. So by the end of March, in fact, before the end of March, we really could see the Central Division playoffs be set in terms of the participants. The seeding obviously is not set. That's a long ways off. Let's go ahead and finish things out here. In terms of the Iowa Heartlanders, the Heartlanders did grab their 16th victory of the season. They did lose for the 2nd time last week, their 32nd regulation loss, dropping that elimination number down to 1 for the playoffs, down to 7 for 5th place, and 9 for 6th. They're now 16, 32, 12, and 1 on the season. 156 goals scored, 224 allowed. Last week, Iowa did score just 5 goals while allowing 7. So again, just really quickly, by virtue of the Fuel's tiebreaker over Wheeling, they are plus 14 in the tiebreaker for there. By virtue of that, the Indy Fuel qualify for the Kelly Cup playoffs for just the 3rd time in their history. They also qualified in the 2018 season, 2017-2018, as well as in the 2020-2021 season. So they did participate in the 2021 Kelly Cup playoffs. Again, a quick look at what's coming up for the Central Division teams. Right now, again, in first place, we do have the Cincinnati Cyclones. Again, so with Fort Wayne being 9 back, and with more than that to play, Fort Wayne is still eligible for the division, but that number is 1 for the Comets. So if Fort Wayne loses in any fashion, and Cincinnati, and it doesn't even really matter what Cincinnati does. If Fort Wayne loses in any fashion to Rapid City on Friday, or if Cincinnati is able to go into West Valley City and beat the Utah Grizzlies, that is where the Cyclones play this week. If either of those things happen, Fort Wayne will be eliminated from the division. The Cyclones' magic number to eliminate the Fuel is 6. And magic number is 13 for the Cyclones to eliminate Toledo. Okay, So, again, as the playoffs stand right now, for the Toledo Walleye, their magic number to eliminate Fort Wayne is 2. They are right now plus 12 on Fort Wayne in terms of regulation wins. So if the Walleye win at all on Friday, or again, if Toledo beats Reading, or again, if Fort Wayne loses in any fashion, Fort Wayne will be eliminated from second place. So we'll go ahead. Again, that magic number is 2 for that, and then the magic number for Toledo to eliminate the Indy Fuel and clinch that second spot in the division. That number is actually down to 6 for the Walleye. So for the Fuel, by virtue of their tiebreakers, they have eliminated Wheeling. Magic number to eliminate Fort Wayne, that number is 8. And it's actually, by virtue of the Fuel's overtime loss, that number is down to 7. So with the Fuel playing 3 games, as well as Fort Wayne playing 3 games, by virtue of their tiebreaker, the Fuel can clinch that third spot this week if they win all 3 of their games and Fort Wayne loses all 3 of their games in regulation. The Fuel will host Greenville on Friday night, and then Kalamazoo on Saturday night, and then the K-Wings on Sunday afternoon. But again, by virtue of that tiebreaker, I'm going to go ahead and take one of those number down by 1, so that magic number is 6 by virtue of that tiebreaker. So that is the Fuel's magic number to clinch that number 3 spot. At the very worst, they do still have the very outside possibility of surpassing Toledo or Cincinnati for second place in the division. But again, with how hot both of those teams are right now, I know that it's very unlikely. It's not impossible, but it is very unlikely that those 2 teams will be able to sustain those streaks. But it is possible. So by virtue of that, we are unable to go ahead and eliminate the Fuel from being able to win the division or second place. By virtue of Fort Wayne's magic number, their magic number is 1, but because of their tiebreaker, they are plus 12 on Iowa with 11 games left. That means the Iowa Heartlanders have been eliminated from playoff competition here in the Kelly Cup playoffs for 2023, so they will spend their first 2 off seasons, unfortunately not participating in the postseason, not just the offseason, but their first 2 postseasons, they will miss the first 2 postseasons in the team's history. Miss the postseason in the first 2 seasons, I guess, is how the proper way to word that would be, but that is the case for Iowa. They will again be missing the playoffs for a second straight year. For Kalamazoo, that elimination number is 5 for Fort Wayne. And again, Fort Wayne right now plus 10 on Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo is still with 12 games remaining, so we can't take that game off. They are plus 6 games on Wheeling. That is their elimination number there. So again, Fort Wayne can clinch the playoffs. The Wheeling Nailers, their schedule is hosting Kalamazoo on Friday and then Reading Saturday, Sunday. We already mentioned that. And then Kalamazoo is on the road all week. 3 games for the K-Wings. They are at Wheeling on Friday night and then at Indy on Saturday and then Sunday. And just because we do cover all the teams in the standings, Wheeling's magic number 7 to eliminate the Heartlanders. And it is still 10 to eliminate the K-Wings. Again, Wheeling pretty close to being eliminated as well. The Nailers schedule, been over that a few times. We're not going to go over it again. Just went over Kalamazoo's schedule. Their magic number is 9 to eliminate Iowa. And then the Iowa Heartlanders have a week at home this week, hosting the Wichita Thunder on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. That should be an interesting series because I know that the Heartlanders have a lot of pride. They do play very well at home. They got a great home crowd. So it'll be very interesting to see with Wichita struggling right now as of our live standings. Again, we're going to go over that later in the Mountain Division. That's going to be my final standings video of the day. But having the Thunder right now tied for the playoffs, they're back one because Utah has a game in hand. But both Utah and Wichita are playing teams from the Central Division. Cincinnati spending their entire week in Utah. Again, playing out in West Valley City on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. That's a really tough place to play. I know that the Cyclones have done incredibly well on the road this season. Away from home, Cincinnati has a record of 25-3. That's 759 winning percentage, the second best in the division. Only Toledo is better at home, or on the road, excuse me. But the top three teams that have clinched the playoff spots there are fantastic. All teams are 650 or better, and across the entire ECHL, there are only three other teams across the league that have a better winning percentage than that. Maine is at 667, Jacksonville 655, and then Idaho, of course, just running away with just about everything, has a 741 winning percentage on the road. So the top three teams that have clinched in the Central Division, that's been kind of where they've been able to make their money at this year, is winning a lot of games on the road in that Central Division. But thank you for tuning into the Central Division recap for the week. As I mentioned, already been over all the schedules. So next up, we will go over what the North Division standings look like and what the playoffs are shaping up to be. So tune into that if you choose.